The Battle of the Bay of Biscay was a naval action that took place on 28 December 1943 during World War II as part of the Atlantic Campaign. The battle took place in the Bay of Biscay between two light cruisers of the British Royal Navy, and a destroyer and a torpedo boat flotilla of the German Kriegsmarine hoping to intercept and escort a blockade runner. The battle was fought as part of the Allied Operation Stonewall, which was to intercept German blockade runners off the west coast of France. In the confused action that followed, the two British cruisers HMS Enterprise and HMS Glasgow respectively sank T-26, together with her sister ship T-25 and the destroyer Z-27. Background: in late December 1943, a German Kriegsmarine destroyer flotilla, reinforced by 6 large Elbing-class torpedo boats, were ordered to the Bay of Biscay in order to escort into a French port the blockade runners, Osorno and Alsterifer, which were carrying vital cargo from Japan. The Germans codenamed this Operation Bernard. The blockade runner Osorno reached the Gironde on 26 December, but struck a wreck in the estuary after being attacked by the RAF. She was beached and subsequently unloaded offshore. Meanwhile, Alsterifer, carrying tungsten and rubber, was still much further behind. Corvetting Captain Franz Kolauf sailed from Brest on the morning of 27 December with the torpedo boats T-23, T-24, T-26 and T-22. The 8th Destroyer Flotilla under Captains R.C. Hans Erdmenga put out from the Gironde with destroyers Z-24, Z-37, Z-32 and Z-27, accompanied by 2 torpedo boats T-25 under the command of Corvetting Captain Warwick von Gartzen, and T-27. The British Admiralty were also aware of the impending arrival of Alsterifer through the decryption of German Enigma messages at Bletchley Park, and sent out dispatches to the nearest ships in the area for the interception. The closest ship, the light cruiser HMS Glasgow, which had sailed from the Azores on 24 December, was soon joined by HMS Enterprise in support. But further away, HMS Mauritius had been ordered out from Gibraltar. HMS Penelope steamed past Lisbon, and HMNZS Gambia was in the western Atlantic. By 4 o'clock the next day, the 4th Flotilla was 300 miles due south of Cape Clear, the 8th Flotilla standing to the south and were ready to meet Alsterifer. She was however nowhere to be seen, but the Germans were completely unaware that during the previous afternoon a B-24 Liberator bomber of No. 311 Squadron RAF had attacked and set Alsterifer on fire. Abandoned by her crew, the ship was finished off by Liberators of No. 86 Squadron. This released the Glasgow and Enterprise, who were some 300 nautical miles southwest of the German forces and were now steaming eastwards along the 45th parallel. Just after midday, Erdmenga's 8th Destroyer Flotilla sighted Kolauf's 4th Flotilla to the east, whereupon the torpedo boats turned east astern of the northernmost destroyers, taking station on the port side. Battle. Allied aircraft had already reported the position of the German ships, and at the same time a lone German Focke-Wulf FW-200 Condor sighted and attacked both cruisers, only to be repelled by anti-aircraft gunfire. The German aircrew reported the British cruiser's position around 1,300 hours to Erdmenga, but only over half an hour later, and immediately turned northeast. Captain Charles Clark on HMS Glasgow, assuming that he had been reported, then also turned northeast. working around Erdmenger's position to intercept. The sea was becoming rougher and the wind had increased to 30 knots, making sailing difficult for the destroyers and torpedo boats. Sailing into rough seas and gale-force winds, Glasgow sighted the destroyers at 1,332 hours at a range of 16 miles. The two cruisers then intercepted at flank speed and altered course to cut their German ships off from the base. Soon after, Clark gave the order for Glasgow to open fire with her 6-inch naval guns, A and B turrets using her Type 273 radar far-ranging. Enterprise opened fire a few minutes later. The two leading German destroyers, however, remained unscathed as shells splashed 100 to 150 meters from the targets. The Germans counter-attacked. Z-23 launched 6 torpedoes, 3 from each bank of tubes, when the range was down to 17,000 meters but missed. Both destroyers also opened up with the 15 centimeters guns, and the first shots fell only 200 meters over on Glasgow's port quarter. At about 1,405 hours, a German shell hit Glasgow, which exploded in a boiler room, killing 2 members of the port pom-pom crew. Also, Enterprise was continually straddled by near misses. By 1,418 hours, both of the German flotillas were now all involved in the fight. The 4th torpedo boat flotilla attempted to attack with torpedoes a number of times but was frustrated by the heavy seas. Z-32 and Z-37 turned towards the cruisers, enclosing to 12,800 meters, launched 6 and 4 torpedoes respectively as the cruisers continued to give heavy and accurate fire. The torpedo attack forced Glasgow to make an emergency turn to port as the track of one torpedo passed no more than 30 meters from her port quarter and 2 more near the port side. Enterprise had by this time separated from Glasgow and both acted independently. After the torpedo attack, the destroyers laid smoke and then retired back towards the flotilla line. The formation was as follows: Z-32, Z-24, Z-37, T-23, T-27, T-26, T-22, T-25, Z-27 and Z-25, while Z-32 and Z-37 being off to port in the course of the torpedo attack. The German force then split up, whereupon Glasgow reversed course at 1,435 hours to chase the northerly group of destroyers. Enterprise had already altered course to the west to head them off. The Germans then launched another torpedo attack, but shortly after Z-27 had fired hers, she received a shell hit from Enterprise, which struck the boiler room, passing through an oil bunker which caused a huge fire. Clouds of steam gushed from her forward funnel as her speed fell off. After being hit, she fired her second salvo of 4 torpedoes but missed. Glasgow meanwhile concentrated on T-25, which soon after sustained hits in the region of the aft torpedo tubes, the flake fouling and the 3.7 cm flak platforms, which killed or wounded all the crews. Then a second shell struck the German torpedo boat, which completely destroyed the mast as well as the funnel. T-25 was now a sitting duck and requested T-22 to attempt to come alongside and take off her crew. Glasgow shifted to T-26, which was quickly bracketed by near misses. T-22 had both cruisers on her port side, and in an effort to drive them off while she closed in on her damaged consort, she fired her full spread of torpedoes and opened fire with her guns. The torpedoes passed harmless adversely by the targets, and as T-22 turned to starboard towards T-25, she too was bracketed by near misses. T-22 abandoned the rescue after suffering another hit, then laid smoke, fired her guns and withdrew to the southwest. T-26 was still under fire and was soon severely hit in the boiler room, and as T-22 laid smoke to screen her, the damaged ship signaled that she was sinking. T-22 turned northwards and broke away. The two cruisers reversed course, chasing and soon catching T-26. Clark ordered Enterprise to finish her off while he turned Glasgow north again to look for the other damaged German vessels, particularly T-25. Glasgow soon came across not T-25 but Z-27, drifting and silent, closing to point-blank range. Glasgow fired, hitting the destroyer's magazines. The hit caused a large explosion which killed Erdmenga, his staff and the captain. At the same time, Enterprise finished off T-26 with a single torpedo and then moved in for the kill on T-25. The German ship's bridge and upper deck were a twist of metal and her after superstructure wrecked, but she remained afloat. Enterprise closed to 3,000 meters firing her guns and then fired a torpedo. Within minutes T-25 was an abandoned, burning and sinking wreck. Aftermath. The two British cruisers met up once more and seeing no further signs of the German fleet, this was the end of the battle. Having accounted for 3 of the German squadron at no significant damage to themselves, the two cruisers withdrew towards Plymouth. They arrived there on the evening of the 29th of December, low on both fuel and ammunition. Glasgow had received only one hit that killed 2 crew members and wounded another 3, while Enterprise had no real damage except for shell splinters. The 2 German survivors, T-22 and Z-23, reunited and headed towards Saint-Jean-de-Luz near the Spanish border. The rest of the German ships headed back to the Gironde. Only 283 survivors of the 672 men on the 3 sunken ships were rescued, 93 from Z-27, 100 from T-25 and 90 from T-26. British and Irish ships, Spanish destroyers and German U-boats took part in the rescue. About 62 survivors were picked up by British minesweepers as prisoners. 168 were rescued by a small Irish steamer, the MV Curlog, and 4 by Spanish destroyers, whereby they were all interned. Morale for the German Navy was lowered even further when news filtered through of the battleship Scharnhorst being sunk in the North Cape, marking a sour note to the end of the year for the Kriegsmarine. As it turned out, Osorno was the last of the blockade runner to get through. 3 other German blockade runners were sunk between 3 and 5 January 1944 by Allied patrols in the South Atlantic. The Germans thereafter ceased all surface blockade running and switched to movement by submarine. These became known as Yanagi missions.